How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah.
How could you not know that? It's not
okay.
even. You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump.
I'm not saying that.
Which is, if you allow it, you will encourage more of it.
Seconder usually when I propose this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to have it defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this, pick a number, get online, and kiss my ass.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed are greater than the legal services of other lawyers. You found the Heart of Dixie podcast number 14 on Juneteenth. And I'm Harry Still. I'm an attorney at law down in Daphne, Alabama. I'm joined today by our co-host, Brandon Mosley, reporter and content manager at the Alabama Gazette. How are you today, Brandon?
I'm doing fine, Harry. How are you?
Well, I'm inside on a beautiful holiday, so, things have been better. And,
yes, it may be illegal for us to work on Juneteenth.
I think it might be. And so also giving up his time to talk to our listeners is a candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Alabama, Pastor Dean Odle. How are you, Mr. Odle?
Doing great. Great to see y'all. Thanks for having me.
So I see that you've run before, and it says that you joined the race for Alabama governor over COVID-19. Is that right? Did you run last time?
I did run for governor last time against Kay Ivey because of the unconstitutional shutdowns and restrictions on churches and a whole lot of issues.
Yeah, I couldn't go to work at the courthouse for like a year, so I'm a little miffed. And I'm the idiot that didn't take the $135,000 that nobody had to pay back. Because I'd rather owe the Dixie Mafia $20 million than owe the federal government 30 cents, right?
Right.
Exactly. So anyway, I understand you've written several books, and you're a scriptural purist. Is that a good way to describe your position on the earth and all that mess?
I would say that I interpret the Bible with the basic hermeneutical points that all seminaries say that they follow. For instance, a friend of mine, Dr. John Strazdich, PhD from Fuller Theological Seminary in California, expert in Hebrew and Greek. And basically, I had him check my hermeneutics, and he he said they're spot on. When it comes to biblical interpretation, the key things are the Bible means what it says what it means. There is figurative and symbolic language in the Bible, but it's usually talking about something that's literal. It's just giving a word picture, illustration of something. And if it is clearly just an allegory, it'll say it is, or it's absolutely clear. Otherwise, we have to take the scriptures literally. And of course, like for instance, scholars for a long time said that King David was a mythical character, that he never really existed. And that was the position of liberal Bible seminaries for many, many years until we dug up the David stele that proved, it was written in stone from that time period, 1000 BC, that King David was a mighty king at that time. And so a lot of times, again, there are liberal theologians that like to throw out the terms figurative language or metaphors or whatever, figures of speech, when they don't believe that the Bible to be true. So that's just a fact. I'm really a Bible, as you would say, a Bible believing Christian, first and foremost. And so is 75 to 86% of Alabamians. At least they say they are.
So where do you come down on something like, you're talking about recent discoveries, like something like the Book of Enoch that was discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls?
The Book of Enoch's an interesting piece of literature because it's probably even older than what they say it is. But it was quoted in the Bible, in the book of Jude, and Jesus quoted it, and even some of the apostles quoted it directly. So I believe what we have with the Book of Enoch is the real book, but because we don't have something more ancient to check it by, we don't know exactly if every single word is accurate, but I think overall it's a very accurate book in my opinion. I do use the Book of Enoch sometimes just to illustrate some things, but I've read the Book of Enoch through several times and actually never found it to contradict the Bible in any place.
Anyway, I thought it was interesting because of the fallen angels and demons and Azazel and all these other demonic names that are in pop culture that people may recognize that are in the Book of Enoch. Brandon's much more the biblical scholar than I am. I'm just unfortunate grandson of, I don't know, my granddaddy had a PhD in theology and religion, so I had to read the good book until my eyes bled.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about, I wear a analog watch because if you know what you're doing with an analog watch, you can find out which way is north. And in the northern hemisphere, which is where we are, what you do is you take the hour hand and you take halfway between 3 o'clock and 12 o'clock, or halfway between your hour hand. And it just happens to be right about 3 o'clock today. So if you were outside and you put the sun in line with your hour hand and go halfway back to 12 o'clock position, that is south, and that is dictated by the movement of the heavenly bodies. Anyway, the reason I know about all this is I had to take a celestial navigation class or astronavigation where we used, a sextant, which has been around for how long, Brandon?
Oh, it probably goes back 400 years. The first version's not what we have, but.
Yeah, the Jeopardy Queen Brandon knows all these. So anyway, the reason I know is I had to go get a six-pack captain's license at one point in time, like back when I was 20 years old. It's been lapsed for years, but so anyway, that's how I I know about all that good stuff. And in particular, I thought I had a slide in here about it, but nautical twilight, which is a period of time that has been screwed up by Elon Musk. So when you're going to take a reading from a sextant right at twilight, there are only 5 major stars that you could see before 5 years ago. And now at nautical twilight, there's so much trash up there reflecting light, you can't tell which star is which. So it's really kind of screwed it up for everybody going forward. So, Brandon, I say you're in Montgomery. Is there a Juneteenth celebration going on somewhere in town, or was that canceled? I read something about that.
I think the one in Montgomery was canceled, but there are 2 or 3 of them around the state. I think Birmingham's got one at the Civil Rights Institute. Obviously, we've got the baseball game coming up at Rickwood Field to celebrate Juneteenth. I don't know if that's today or tomorrow, but it's this weekend.
Okay, well, I think it's a conspiracy theory to sell more Hallmark cards.
It sells cool T-shirts. You got to give them that.
So anyway, talk about false flags. Yeah, I've never seen that before. And all the black people around here get together the first Saturday of May. It's May Day. Go look in the paper the last 5 years. There's been a major shootout at the May Day barbecues here in North Baldwin County.
To me, like in Alabama, more celebrated than Juneteenth. But Juneteenth is the day that the slaves in Texas in 1865, were liberated by the Union troops as they got off the deal in Galveston and said, hey, Lincoln, freed all the slaves, which, none of the white people in Texas bothered to tell any of the black folks. So we celebrate that as Juneteenth.
I understand that, but to say that that's a nationwide holiday is just a bunch of bull. Nobody around here ever heard of it, especially me.
I never heard of it 10 years ago, but it's it's celebrated as a historical thing. It's an historical event. If we want to celebrate freedom and the liberation of the slaves, I don't know why we can't do it on the day that Lincoln put out the Emancipation Proclamation, but no, we're doing it on the 19th of June every year.
It is snapper season. I mean, I'd rather have it like now than like Columbus Day, what the hell, someday in October. Yeah. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about politics before we get to Pastor Odle's position here. But Britt has endorsed Tuberville, giving him status as the front runner in the governor's race. And
well, I think he already had that status, but getting Katie Britt's endorsement would be a strong thing. I'm sure Dean Odle will take it if she wants to endorse him in lieutenant governor's race. But
so
I know the more support, the better.
Yeah.
So Dean, tell us, you're running as a Republican. Tell us what are you a fiscal conservative? I would imagine that you're a social conservative.
Yes, both. I'm a conservative through and through. I mean, I always have been, economically, socially, in every way. That's kind of been my problem with a lot of the Republicans, not all, but a lot of the Republicans that've been in office in Alabama over the last several decades have not really held true to conservative principles like truly lowering taxes. And, even when it comes to, getting dependent on federal government money and stuff like that, federal programs, which are a lot are just socialism, and how really what ticked me off big time for years is the fact that it was the Republicans that blocked the repeal of Common Core, even after they discovered that it was a failing curriculum and hurting our education system here. What was it? Senator Dale Marsh, Senator Terry Collins, but Representative Collins in the House, in those committees kept blocking the repeal of Common Core. And that's why Alabama sunk to, we were near, I think at times we were 48, 49, sometimes 50th, especially in math. And that was because of Common Core. And I just found out that there's just a lot of corruption within the Republican Party in Alabama. And
You don't say.
We need some different people. We need some people that are not that don't just run around and pretend to be Christians, but actually have a proven record of, like, I've been walking with Jesus for 38 years. I have a proven record. And, I mean what I say and I say what I mean. And if I believe something to be true, whether it's in the Bible or the Constitution or our stated law, I'm not going to back away from it. And especially if it's the right thing to do. And I'm just sick of what I see. I'm sick of it.
Okay. let me tell you what I'm sick of is all these, born again Democrats that were, Obama delegates in 2008 who are now the Trumpers that ever trumped.
Yeah, I mean,
all
I'm
that
in
stuff
agreement
makes
with
me
you
want to
there.
projectile vomit.
Oh, I'm in agreement with you there. I mean, the one you and I would be in very much agreement about Mr. Marshall. I'm not a fan at all because I know what he was, and I believe this is just a game that he's playing. Okay,
well, let's talk a little bit about that because now that he's running for a Senate seat, he can take a PAC-to-PAC transfer.
Yes.
When he was running before, he took a PAC-to-PAC transfer, which he should have been prosecuted for, but who would have prosecuted him? It's a state law, so he would have had to prosecute himself. I guess he opted out of that, but he brought $750,000 in illegal money in, and then he's refused to do anything about the Mabel Amos Trust, this totally corrupt colleague of mine that's running the Ethics Commission.
I mean, under Marshall, the AG's office did sue and enter that deal, representing the people of the state of Alabama.
Right, and buried it. So listen, look. So Dean, you want an issue that'll get people's attention? Tell them you're going to release the Mabel Amos trust documents that show every fat cat in Montgomery who got money, scholarship money for their kids that should have gone to poor black children and white children.
I know about that.
Poor people in Conecuh County.
Yes.
Okay. Well, he helped bury that list. It's nebulously in the hands of a special master, a retired judge who's been put in charge of the evidence. So anyway,
that's when you run for statewide office, people come out of the woodwork and start telling you the horror stories and stuff that they've gone through. And I've heard some serious tales of some injustice and some things that have been ignored by the Attorney General's office. But just the fact that he clearly broke the law, and it was only a 3-2 vote that got him through the Ethics Commission. But that is so disturbing to me. I can't tell you. And listen, people say, well, there's a lot of Democrats that's come over and become Republicans. Well, the proof's in the pudding, but how in the world, I can understand somebody that was still a Democrat maybe in the late 90s or early 2000s, but how in the world were you still a Democrat with Obama running? Obama was very clear that he was a socialist. He was clear about he was going to raise taxes. He was clear about being pro-homosexual marriage and stuff. He was clear about all of that. How could you be an Obama delegate and all of a sudden you switch your entire fundamental principles of what you believe and you're going to get up there and pretend? Let me just say this. There are a lot of pretenders. It's not just A.G. Marshall, but there's a lot of pretenders in the Republican Party who do just enough conservative things to fool the electorate or to fool a lot of these people in these Republican meetings. But you'll watch them. They will overlook or ignore, like you said, push aside, bury the stuff that really needs to get done. And I don't want I don't care if he's just a rhino Republican, but I don't want another so-called fake Republican as this United States Senator from Alabama.
Okay, a Republican. There ought to be a law Republican. All of these guys who think we can legislate our way into utopia. If we could just pass one more law, that Matt Simpson bullcrap. We need to. So they had a big shootout down here. We have the Sanger Theater. It's kind of like the Alabama Theater in Birmingham, old Grand Theater. And there was a dance recital. And a guy pulls out a gun and shoots another guy and shoots a bystander in the leg. So guess what we did down here? We had a big press conference where we said we're going to change the murder statute so that if you shoot into a crowd, you can be charged with capital murder. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, I'm sure somebody's going to whip out their Code of Alabama before they start shooting into a crowd of, what? This doesn't deter anything. It's a bunch of headline grabbing bullcrap.
It is. It's grandstanding. And it just gets old. You know, they're supposed to respect the Constitution. And just like they start talking about, you know, oh, we're going to change this, we're going to repeal the constitutional carry and all this stuff. And it's just like, stop with this nonsense and respect the Constitution. I don't care. I don't lose my constitutional rights. And should no one especially I hear that one of the candidates running for mayor of Mobile is talking about basically attacking the Second Amendment, you know, as if that's going to stop crime. It never has.
Okay, your very popular governor has her own SWAT team of 25 people that she can send into any city to put down trouble. Do you know about this?
I've heard about it. Yes.
Okay, well, there's 20. They've only been deployed in Montgomery so far, but I mean, boy, when you talk about like rise of the empire and fascist bullcrap and the latest where commercial projects can now, you know, we can issue industrial development bonds so that Harry and Brandon can open a laundry, picking winners and losers because of political clout. It's really getting out of hand in the Republican Party.
Yeah, she's been doing that the whole time she's been in there. I mean, she appointed 8 Democrat judges. I mean, if the Republican Party, the Alabama GOP, followed their bylaws and guidelines, she should have not even been allowed on the ballot in 2022. That's how she has helped the Democrat side of in Alabama, and that kind of stuff just goes on.
But she's not Joe Reed. Let's give her that. She's not Joe Reed.
She's a gangster, though.
All right, so let's move on to here's a good one. You ever been to Blount County, Brandon? I just had a trial in Aniana, $2.5 million greenhouse or something like that up there. Anyway, while I was there, I was unaware that there was a major cockfighting ring.
I live in St. Clair County, which is right next to Blount County. Yeah, you can drive through the country, and you know, if you're raising chickens for eggs, you know, they're kind of in a coop running around. But now when you've got little teepees out in the pasture and there's, you know, little roosters.
That's some fighting chickens.
They're all individually chained to their little wood teepee. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't born yesterday. Yeah, I know what those are. Those are gamecocks. Now, there are people who collect gamecocks, but, you know, if you're spending that kind of money that you've got 200 of them in a field, you're making money selling them, and the only people that have any use for gamecocks, you know, are the chicken fighters.
Okay.
So going on somewhere.
So, Dean, I've been around so long. In 2003, I was the county manager up in Gadsden in Etowah County, and the guy who became the beach house sheriff that screwed up everybody getting their, you know, the money for the inmates, the guy that bought the beach house down here in Orange Beach, Todd Intrican. So he came to me and he goes, "Hey, man," he said, "we need somebody that nobody knows to go up here to Sand Mountain to the gun range. They're supposed to be having a chicken fight tonight. A bunch of cockfighting going on and gambling." I was there for 3 hours. I had the time of my life. It was the most fun I've ever had. And it was it was like total mayhem, and it was, you know, like people betting on these chickens. They put spurs on them, the whole bit. I'd never been to anything like that before. It's fascinating, and of course, you know, I took a couple pictures of people's tags as I was leaving. I didn't have a wire on or anything, but yeah, hell yeah, it was going on, and it was fun as all get out. And so I can imagine that there is a, you know, if you ain't got nothing else to do, it's more humane than fighting dogs, isn't it, Brandon? In my book, I wouldn't fight a dog, but I'd go to a chicken fight.
Yeah, I'm not for either one, but, you know, if you had to say, yeah, I would probably rank dog fighting. You know, I mean, I guess the way you would rank that, dog fighting is the worst. Bullfighting is probably the least, you know, inhumane, and chicken fighting can be in the middle. But probably, I think all three are illegal in the United States, and we do have laws for a reason. So I'm not faulting FBI and USDA for enforcing a law. you know.
As expensive as chicken wings and eggs are, they fighting these chickens to death. That seems wasteful. Okay, so Auburn's former deputy chief of diversity still available for DEI-related questions in new role. Isn't that great that we found the DEI person something else to do at Auburn? Oh, and by the way, we're going to talk about this later in our conspiracy theories portion. But are you familiar with Matrix LLC, Dean?
Oh, very much so.
So they had $1 million contract with the NSA at Auburn. Are you familiar with the what's it called, institute there at Auburn? McCrary Institute, yes, for cybersecurity.
I've heard of it.
Yeah,
yes.
so they had $1 million contract with Pitts and Perkins to do what we don't know.
Pitts actually left Perkins, so it wasn't with Pitts.
Okay, well, either way.
Jeff Pitts has his own company now.
A little scandal down here, boys and girls. So Chris Elliott and his little faction have been giving this guy so much shit. He quit. He said, "I got better things to do than take this mess." So anyway, yeah, they're claiming that he's doing. So I can I've been there, done that, got the T-shirt. So when I was the county guy over in Conecuh County, we borrowed money and we were going to tear down the historic courthouse and build a new one that looked just like it because it was just, neglect. It was destroyed by neglect over, it was 125 years old. Mm-hmm. So we borrow the money and we get sued by the Alabama Historic Preservation Commission, and they accuse me as the county manager or CFO of misappropriating money. And I took it personally as hell, and I still hold a grudge about that, Like I was working for the county commission. I wasn't misappropriating money, and the money said we issued the bonds, and we told the people who bought the bonds what we were going to use it for, and we dedicated revenue, and we're paying the bonds back, And I had to go to court and explain all that after these people accused me of something that was baseless. Anyway, I can understand why he resigned. I hope you go find something else to do where these sons of bitches will leave you alone, brother. So anyway, also down here in Gulf Shores, I don't know if you know this, but we have a fella that runs the hangout down here, and he's got the mayor and chief of police in his pocket, so he gets to have his little drug fest down here where personal property, private property, public fornication, defecation, everything you've ever seen at Woodstock happens once a year down here in Gulf Shores, okay? So anyway.
Yeah, I can kind of look at the picture of that guy, and I'm pretty sure transporting that one woman for prostitution, yeah, that was not his first rodeo.
Right, but more importantly than the Ukrainians that we have here, we have, Israeli mob, we have Czechoslovakian mob.
Accusation on your part.
Well,
we do know this guy.
I know what language they speak, and I know they're gangsters. I'm just assuming about their country of origin. My people came from Ireland. We don't still speak Irish. It's been a couple of generations, so I'm assuming that's where they came from. But yeah. So anyway, he's down here picking up women in Gulf Shores. You think he's snatching girls off the football field that are cheerleaders? No. He's getting girls that are already prostitutes and already here. And he's trafficking them from here to New York. Tails $200 here, tails $500 in New York. I beg your pardon?
Ukraine has been known, but long before now, back during the Obama years and when the Bidens were fooling around there, it's been known to be a trafficking hub out of there.
Anywhere that's got poverty like that is a trafficking hub. Yeah. Or war.
It's a big one. And I think that's why Obama and Biden wanted to try to guard it and didn't want information getting out, because it was pretty damning what they were doing there.
Okay, so Katie Britt.
And if you can cut Russia off from the sea, that really weakens them economically. If you can control that southern port on the Black Sea, that would be a stranglehold on the Russian economy. So I understand strategically what we were trying to do in Ukraine. It's just costing a lot of money and a lot of lives.
Yeah.
Republicans once again, and she went on the news to say, we don't know what's going to happen, which is kind of what we watched earlier, right? Tulsi Gabbard's made an unauthorized video calling out warmongers. That raised the ire of the president, who made her national security advisor, former Democrat.
Yeah, her job is to filter information into a form that he can comprehend and give it to him, and otherwise keep her mouth shut. So if they ultimately, the president makes the decision to go to war or not to go to war, and Tulsi's job is to make sure we win if we do.
Yeah, but let me say this about this whole thing. I believe that even Tulsi herself is getting some bad information from deep state individuals that are in the intelligence community. She's got to be very careful as well. But you got to remember that she joined Trump because he was talking about no more useless or baseless foreign wars. Now, I think it's fair to say that, I think we can handle Iran without sending troops there. I think we can, if we want to destroy their nuclear facilities, we have the ability to do it, or to help Israel do it, and then we get out. I don't think we have to have some long, protracted invasion of Iran. So I think ultimately, and I think both Tulsi Gabbard and Donald Trump are going to come back to, and I hear already that they've kind of come back into agreement on what's going on.
We need to, if we need, the president, based on the intelligence, decides that we need to blow up their nuclear facilities, let's just blow up their nuclear facilities. What we do, I kind of think Afghanistan and Iraq would be remembered as great shining moments if we just went in there, killed the Al-Qaeda guys, killed a bunch of Taliban guys, left Afghanistan, then we went to Iraq and took out, Hussein and his guys, and then we're gone. It's when we decide that we, in our great wisdom, are going to occupy somebody for 10 years with U.S. troops, and we're going to force them to adopt a Western-style democracy with a parliament, is like, there's not a history of parliaments in Iran. They've got their history. They go back to the Bible. They're in the Bible, though we just don't call them Iran. They're Persia then.
Iraq, let me correct you there. Iraq was Babylon. Persia was Iran, but Persia did eventually invade and take over Babylon. So Persia owned both places for a long time. Yes.
Yeah, and if you read the Maccabees, then they gave over to the Greeks, who decided to boss people around until the Romans came in and bossed everybody around.
Okay, well, I'm going to give everybody a dose of reality, okay? After we liberated Germany, when did we get the F out of there, Dean?
We're still there.
We're still there. When did we pull out of Japan? Oh, that's right. We're still there.
And that
okay.
Worked
how many people? No. Let's do the Ted Cruz thing. How big is Iran?
It's twice as big as Texas. Okay. And it's got 90 million people.
Proportionally, it's a third the size of the U.S. Well, it's the size of the Confederacy, right? It's the size of the Confederate States, and it has about there's 330 million people here. There's 100 million people and it's a huge country with large centers of population. And when Donald Trump said, "Everybody get your ass out of a city with 20 million people in it," there's 10,000 people got killed in the stampede. What are we doing here?
Here's the thing, and I agree, that's just kind of off the rails. But if you don't look at these things, whether the Afghanistan, Iraq, and Iran now, or if you don't look at the religious aspect of this, you're not going to solve
never understand the people.
Exactly, because you do have a lot of secular Iranians, but maybe not as much in Iraq. But bottom line, most of them are Muslim and what they believe. And most of them, I know a lot of people say, oh, well, there's these radical Muslims and then there's just the peaceful Muslims. There's no such thing. A peaceful Muslim is a Muslim who is not practicing the Quran or the Hadith. The ones that practice the Quran and the Hadith and follow Muhammad are the ones that are following the religion of Islam, and they are a problem. Now, whether it's Shiites or Sunnis, it's still the same belief system. And again, they're not going to ever assimilate into a Western democracy or republic, I should say. They're not going to do that because their very religion demands that they create a caliphate, and that caliphate is ruled by them. And just like the Muslims, even the affluent Muslims here in America say, they're not here to assimilate, they are here to take over. And we see that they've done it already in France and England and everywhere they go. So
okay, but
again, this is a religious issue. Now, I agree that I would not want to see Iran with a nuclear weapon. I agree. We need to stop that. Somebody does. But because of their religious beliefs and what they want to do to Israel and the United States if they had a nuclear weapon. But I would never go into a protracted war and put troops in the country because it's ridiculous. Because they're just going to go back. We can set them back technologically, but we don't have to invade. We don't have to stay there because we're not going to change them.
But even as a pastor, you have to agree that theocracies are about the most dangerous thing that you could possibly have in a form of government, where you have religious dogma dictates public policy, kind of like in Israel. I mean, if we want to talk about theocracies who are inflexible.
Well, I mean, the secular Jews pretty much run Israel. They just have
You're going to have religious
until
influence.
they kill Yitzhak Rabin, they run it until they get murdered by a fanatic. Yeah.
I mean, there is a struggle for world domination, period. I mean, that's just true. And that there's different ideologies that are pushing that. And some of it is clandestine and some of it is easy to see and some of it is religious. And I agree. Like, for instance, the greatest persecutors of true Christianity, of true Christians, Bible-believing Christians for centuries was the political church called the Roman Catholic Church. Now, that's just a fact.
I don't know if we've gone that far now.
That is an absolute fact of history.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, hey, look, I measure the greatest and most humane people on earth, and then all the children they rape. God.
Well, just like they just dug up another monastery in underground in Ireland, and they found all of these children that had been aborted because the nuns end up in sexual relations with the priest, and they bring people in there. And bottom line, they found bones of not just aborted babies there, but children up to 3 years old that they done away with. The Roman Catholic Church is in the Bible as the great whore of Mystery Babylon, and she is defined as being drunk with the blood of the saints and the martyrs of Jesus, and it is an absolute fact of history, and I know this history like the back of my hand.
We'd have to disagree on this one.
Well, you're denying history.
Well, I know that not only in 1492, not only did Columbus sail the ocean blue, but they burned everybody who wasn't a Roman Catholic in Spain. Call me a liar.
Yeah. Well, what they were doing, there was no Protestants in 1492 for them to oppress, but they did oppress the Muslims, which had occupied Spain,
Barcelona, for 7,000 years.
War, which finally won. The Catholic, Ferdinand and Isabella won that war. Ultimately, and that freed them up with resources militarily and money wise. For hey, we can fund. Let's go to. We'll travel across the globe and expand the flag. And, Spain, they discovered America because they had the resources. They could do that at that time because their great, war, the Reconquista with the Muslims finally ended.
I have to say something. To say that there were no Protestants in 1492 is absolutely insane, because you haven't heard of the Waldenses, the Albigenses, the apostles, and in fact, the apostles in the 70 that Jesus ordained to walk with him. We have a historical record of where they went to take the scriptures, and they went into Italy, and they went into France, and they went into all these areas and into the Middle East. There's been Protestants in Europe and in the Middle East since 200 AD at least. So again,
Protestant means protester.
Yeah, I think the Lutherans were the first Protestants.
Protest until there was a strong Catholic Church.
I
and
understand.
that begins with Martin Luther in like 1515. When he gets shut down by his superiors within the Catholic Church, and unfortunately, he starts, acting up instead of just following orders. And you have a drunk German who basically, had problems with authority all his life.
Are you Catholic, Brandon?
Yes, I am.
That's the problem. Okay.
Okay, so let's get back to having fun.
We probably need to move on. Yes.
Let's get on to the current century.
Let's get back to imaginary shit that Ted Cruz posts to rehab his horrible performance in what should have been an anticipated question. What is the population of the Death Star, Mr. Luke Skywalker? And of course, you don't know that. So, Brandon, I want you to tell me about this breakthrough for Alabama medical marijuana rollout as issuance of contested license moves forward. So, I didn't see a ruling from a judge. Did somebody just wake up one day and say, holy shit, we probably ought to do our jobs?
I kind of expect we have a court hearing ahead of us, but the commission at this point wants to roll out with issuing licenses. It's going to be somebody much smarter than me that decides how this ultimately ends up in court.
Brandon, we could have done the cow pie thing on the football field, and it had been smarter than what John McMillan and these bunch of people have done, as much as I like John. You got to admit, this thing's been a total
This has been a tricky deal.
Tricky by butt. It's like it was intentionally sabotaged.
Well, the legislators, there were people that knew they couldn't stop it in the legislature, so they amended the bill in certain ways to cause future legal problems, and they did a good job. So that the beverage industry is going to be in charge of distributing hemp products. We're not going to have any smokable. We're not going to have any gummies. It's all going to be Coca-Cola and Budweiser. And it's the same old dirty little compact that we have with alcohol. We're now going to have with these producers of THCA. Well, the medical cannabis is going to be recognized by the Medical Cannabis Commission.
Yes, which is a Schedule I drug, Brandon. How does that work? If it's federally illegal, how in the world can I possess it in the state of Alabama?
Psychoactive cannabinoids derived from hemp are going to be regulated by the Alabama Alcoholic Beverage Control Board.
Yes.
And when the Republicans took over, they're going to get rid of the ABC board. And the ABC board has never made more money and never been more powerful. And now we just gave it a new 10% tax on psychoactive cannabinoids and a 6% tax on vapes. It's a good time to be an ABC guy.
Yep. We regulate our way into utopia. Alabama Police Department investigating officer's use of baseball bat during arrest. Have y'all seen this thing? He breaks the window out and then whoops this dude's rear end.
I know we made a whole movie in the 70s about walking tall sheriff.
No, this is aluminum baseball bat. This isn't.
Yeah, the baseball bat was just banging up on people.
This isn't a hickory stick. It's a damn aluminum baseball bat that he wailed on.
The question is, what is the context of this? I mean, did the guy try to run over him?
It was a husband-wife domestic thing, and somebody called and said he'd taken her against his will. And I mean, if I'm having a fight with my girlfriend and the cops pull up and they want me to get out of the car, I don't know about you, I ain't getting out of the damn car.
Would you rather the police officer just open up with his sidearm and just shoot people?
I'd rather they stay the hell out of people's private business.
Law and order. I mean, I'm not.
I'd rather them keep the hell out of people's private business because, as far as I knew,
they got called in there, and it's like, okay, I'm in charge now. I'm gonna hit you with my stick. Okay.
Yeah, like I said, the Pritchard Police Department is not the yardstick by which all other police departments should be measured. Okay.
Probably not the standard.
So, mayoral candidate, also this, y'all know this guy? So, he's running for mayor in Birmingham, and he's been arrested twice in prostitution springs over in Fairfield.
I bet that wasn't his first rodeo either.
No, I mean, when it's your thing, man. I don't know why some guys like to pay for it, but they do. A lot of them do. Alabama's going further with distracted driving law, so you can only use one finger or your hands free if they see you holding your phone. And like you said, Brandon, it's supposed to be secondary charge, right?
It's supposed to be a secondary violation, and we actually follow the law.
Yeah, we're not following the law. We're just pulling everybody over.
Strictly for having your phone up here.
Welcome to the kindergarten of the state of Alabama, where where our benevolent betters are watching us all the time. And you better not be on your phone while you're driving. How about this one? They're using the damn flock camera system to track people leaving Texas, going to other states to get abortions. They're going to start tracking women, so we can do what Brandon wants and assign a state trooper to every woman that gets pregnant so we can hold a gun on her until she gives birth. We can get away with all abortions.
Little baby guys.
Yeah, and let me tell you this. This week, the dumbest damn thing that ever happened in my little town of Daphne, Alabama. They put one of these stupid-ass baby boxes in the wall at the fire department. So you do realize you can walk into any ER, any police department, any fire department in the United States and hand them a baby and walk away. Okay. Yeah. That's been the law for years. It's called a safe place drop-off. So there's no need for a baby box, and there's sure shit no need for
one baby with the baby box. Then it was cool. All
right. So Alabama Secretary of State Wes Allen recently signed a memorandum of agreement with the Department of Homeland Security to gain access to the Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements program, a program that will be used to identify non-citizens registered to vote. So this is where we're going to use like Peter Thiel's little Palantir program and put all the databases together so we know where everybody does what everybody's doing all the time. And for some reason, I have to live under this 1984 bullshit so that maybe the cops can solve a crime sometime in the future. Maybe.
Well, what we want is Americans voting for Americans in our election and not have a whole bunch of election fraud, because we've got people.
We don't have a whole lot of election fraud.
Our problem, and let me just go and tell you, and this is a big thing, and y'all can disagree, don't really care, but this is the truth. This right here, all that he's doing, and I'm running against that guy for lieutenant governor, but even if I wasn't, this pisses me off, and it pissed me off with John Merrill, is that bottom line, we know that there's a problem with the machines, ES&S, Dominion, Smartmatic, all of them. All the CEOs of those companies before Congress have admitted under oath that their machines have either major components or nearly all completely made in China. Now, these are computer electronic equipment made in China that is conducting our elections. On top of that, let's just say that the voting machine is not connected to the internet, but we found out that it was through Haynes v. Merrill, because Merrill had to back up and admit the truth under oath. Let's just say, though, that the actual tabulators don't. When they take that flash drive to the local courthouse to be tabulated, to take all that together, it's put on a Dell laptop. because the purchase order, I've seen the purchase order, have a copy of it from the state, and the Dell laptops that every single probate judge got from the state of Alabama has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity. So the moment those votes go on that laptop computer, it can be hacked into outside sources, and especially with Chinese components. Now, I know the computer cyber expert, Clay Parikh, who is a forensic expert. He lives up in Huntsville. He has stated under oath, and he was allowed in Michigan to look at an ES&S machine, the same machines we use here in Alabama, and he looked at the source code and found Chinese code in the source code. And he also identified modems. And NBC has reported that there were, when the federal government did a test on several of the machines systems in different states, that were saying the companies were saying, oh, our machines don't connect to the internet. And they found out that they did. Here's the thing. President Trump, I believe he's correct, wants to go to paper ballots and hand counting, just like Germany, France, Denmark. I mean, you can name, it's about 100 countries that do this. And they don't have the amount or the ability to do computer manipulation. And we've seen it. We saw votes disappear in 2020 from Trump and go to Biden. This has been a documented fact, and on multiple occasions. And then the other day,
okay, that didn't happen in the voting systems. That happened in the on Fox News' reporting and NBC News. They're the ones that change the numbers, not the machines.
No. Let me say this: the numbers that Fox gets, CNN gets, whoever the news agency is, it goes straight from the Secretary of State's website to that news reporting organization. Now, yeah, they could switch it up and they could mess it up, but they're getting their reports and their numbers straight there. But the bottom line, we've seen it happen. We've seen it happen in Michigan. We've seen it happen in Georgia. The machines had, listen to this, in 2022, I think it was District 2. It was a county commission election over in Georgia. And the woman who was the conservative, she was the conservative Republican candidate, was deemed to lose the election, coming in third. And then what happened was that she and her husband had gone to vote in their voting precinct. And when she saw the results, she got to look at the tabulation results from each precinct that was printed out by the machines. It said that there were no votes for her in her precinct. So she went and said, I know my husband and I voted for me, so this is showing no votes here. Well, guess what? When they went back and actually audited the machines versus the paper ballots, what did they find? They found that she actually won the election and not the Democrat.
And the paper ballots worked. The backups worked. That's what they're for, in case there's an anomaly. Like, nobody voted for this candidate.
Do a post-election audit. They
do not. And they don't allow you to see the paper ballots. And there's another thing.
They do in the recount. If you pay for a recount, it's not just electronic retabulation. If you're willing to pay for it, you can get a paper hand ballot recount.
Well, here's the thing. The audit bill that they had, well, of course, it kept getting watered down.
It was a weak bill, but it still did not.
It still didn't pass. Why? Why are we the only state that doesn't audit or check those paper ballots? I'm just going to tell you
5%.
Because we got 5 people that work in the Secretary of State's office, guys. These are vendors who are providing the service. I was the damn election manager for Etowah County in 2004, so don't tell me what I don't know about. All these election machines were dumb back then. I don't know what they are now. They took a data packet that looked like an Atari cartridge that went in them, okay? It visually scanned the ballots as they got put in. I know exactly how all of it worked back then. Now, bring it forward. I know that they're using iPad tablets to make sure that people are on the voter rolls. Those are definitely connected to the internet. That's a totally different component than this voting machine. Dean, if it was connected to the internet, why the hell wouldn't it just report over the internet, why would we put it on a flash drive and carry it over there? It would be much more secure if it were firewalled, if we wanted to do that.
It has. There's been reports in Alabama that they have sent the results to the Secretary of State's house directly from the tabulators. I've done my research on this.
I have too, and I've been around for all kinds of stolen elections, and the damn sheriff going getting the box of ballots, taking it from beat A down to the courthouse, and half the ballots getting redone. That's election fraud, and that's been going on for 200 years, and ain't nobody bitched a word about it but me.
Oh, yeah. Look, there can be cheating. You're right, in any type of system. But electronic tampering is the easiest way to switch votes and do it without people seeing. And this is a fact. I'm not talking it for me. I'm talking about experts that I've talked to. Colonel Sean Smith that I've met and talked to, who was the cyber security expert for the Pentagon for years, Air Force colonel, retired, says point blank that they get hacked all the time at the Pentagon. He said they have to do all their resources to stop. They've had weapon systems turned on. And because, guess what?
Begs the question, why is it connected to the internet?
Hey, listen,
makes no sense.
There can be one piece that's so small, it's as small as a pencil lead head, and it can be hidden in whatever electronic device, and it can be turned on remotely if that's in there. He said
they can damn sure blow up a pager. We know they can blow up a pager. I don't know about putting this other stuff in there, but they can put explosives in the pager.
Words. This is not my words. This was Colonel Sean Smith under oath in the courtroom, Haynes v. Merrill, because I sat there for 8 hours.
Yeah, I see people lying in the courtroom all the time, but go ahead. I'm a poor person to say. They swore after they put their hand on the Bible, and they swore under oath.
Here's the thing. You act like we couldn't count 1.7 million or 3 million ballots in an evening hand counted, yet Germany does 46 million. France does 31 million. Canada does 12.5 million hand counted ballots in one evening, and they know who the winner is.
Okay, well, you're talking about throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
We have hand counted in Alabama before, and we notoriously cheated in elections over and over and over again.
We can't even trust our governor to pardon people. This place is so corrupt. We have a pardons and parole board because the governor was selling pardons in the damn 1920s. We can't have anything nice.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But why do we have Ivy? She was polling at 40% 2 weeks out from the election.
Justice Sellers?
In the signal poll, when I was at 1819, we did our own poll with separate pollsters, and we had her winning without a runoff. The results
I'm telling you
what we at 1819 were predicting.
Let me give you a poll. I traveled this state 80,000 miles, went to more meetings, talked to more people than all of my opponents combined. And let me tell you what I heard everywhere I went. I don't know who I'm voting for governor, but I'm not voting for Kay Ivey. I've never met a person traveling for 2 solid years, 80,000 miles, crisscrossing the state, talking to big and small crowds. I never heard one person tell me I'm voting for Kay Ivey. So
there's 5 million people in the state. I mean, I know you went to a lot of meetings, and I kind of believe that at the typical Republican meeting, of grassroots activists, and hardcore GOPers, Kay Ivey probably did not win that group. But now the people that watch television and aren't into going to meetings or watching podcasts, yeah, I think that's the core Kay Ivey voters.
Well, that's how she got 40%, because anybody that had any kind of brains looked at that woman and goes, well, first of all, is she even capable of doing it? I was in a pancake breakfast with her. I sat right almost next to her up in Birmingham, and the woman couldn't cut her own pancakes when I was sitting there. This is in 2021. And I'm just like, I watched her come to what I think in the entire time I was out traveling, we were at 2 meetings that she came out to at the time. It was insane. She wouldn't debate anybody, which she never has, I don't guess.
I'd say that's the thing as a Republican that you ought to jump on. How in the world do we have someone running for governor who we let on the ballot who refuses to debate? Okay, right there, you're done. Yeah. You're done if you won't debate your opponent in a fair and open forum.
You go back and watch, like when I decided to run for governor, you know what I did? I've always paid attention. I mean, I grew up with the Governor Fob James' son. We're friends. I've helped in campaigns. I've been in the governor's mansion.
Should we mute him now, Brandon?
What's that?
Go ahead.
I've been around it. I've been around it since I was a kid. And but I forgot where I was going now.
I'm sorry. You were talking about Tim James.
No, I don't even know. We were going somewhere with that. You got me off track, man.
All right. Well, look, we're moving on, and this is what I want to talk to you about. So now that we can 3D print guns, is the ATF? This is like catching smoke. We're trying to get every gun ever made serial number and tie it to a person, and now we can print guns. And did you see that they perfected glass? We can now 3D print glass with 3D printer. Like all kinds of innovative stuff's going on with this stuff.
The military just a month ago canceled the contract on the Booker, which was the new light tank, because their contract with General Dynamics did not allow them to 3D print parts. And the Pentagon said, hey, we don't wait for a part to be flown in from God knows where in the U.S. to repair our deal out in the field. We just print the part. And as 3D printers get more out there, I mean, they're printing stuff, with the 3D printer that's a whole lot more complicated than the components of like an AR.
But a Second Amendment advocate like yourself, you got to go, why shouldn't somebody be able to print their own gun? Why not? If somebody can make it and sell it, why can't, just like the marijuana thing, why I got to buy this stuff from anybody? Why can't I plant it in my backyard? Why wouldn't anybody regulate it?
It's illegal, and I'm not necessarily objecting to it being illegal, but we've reached a point, we were already at a point where anybody who was a trained machinist could make their own gun.
Oh, hell, you can make a suppressor out of a oil can filter. I mean, an oil filter.
A good machinist can make a revolver in, he can make a dozen of them in like a week.
Yeah, with a couple of billets of good steel. Yeah.
All federal regulations on firearms are unconstitutional, period.
Yeah, I think if you're Bill Gates and you want to have a A1 Abrams tank, hell, you ought to be able to buy one. That's what it means to me. Running around on my little 5,000 acres in the desert I bought.
In the 80s, when we broke down in the hayfield, my grandfather didn't drive, 80 miles to Coleman to a dealer for a part that's not in inventory. He took it down to a machine shop that was like a mile and a half from us. The little guy that, serviced and maintained all that expensive equipment, at the machine shop, after hours, he would print up whatever parts my grandfather wanted. And, he bought them for a fraction of what Vicon or John Deere were selling them for. And, it was good. As good. You couldn't tell the difference other than the cost between the ones the machine shop made and the ones that, are 2 weeks on back order from Vicon over in Europe.
Okay, so look, I carry a Walther PPS, and the original Walther PPS had this weird latch type mag release instead of a button, and then the PM2 came out, and it had a contoured grip, and it had the regular push button to drop the mag, right? So what if I wanted to 3D print just a lower? and put the rest of the components. You see where it starts getting murky about whether or not you've done something illegal, because I want to say the receiver is the part that you can't do that with. Do you know what I mean?
It's the upper that you can't legally make.
Maybe that's right. But if you look at your pistol on the polymer part of it below the slide, there's a printed, they have to put where it was made or imported, like it says Manassas, Virginia or something, or Springfield Armory, New York.
Guns illegal here in the state of Alabama. A ghost gun is essentially what we're talking about.
Well, but what I'm talking about is mixing and matching.
Or somebody with a 3D printer just makes it. Of course, it has no serial then because it's just made.
Right. But anyway, I don't trust that. If my life's dependent on this thing, I'll gladly pay $1,000 for a reliable firearm instead of printing something that's going to blow up.
I don't trust my machining skills. I might make my
no, me either.
I'm just saying there are people that can.
But 30 years from now, we will not be going down to the auto parts store. We will be going down to the store and we'll go to the kiosk and we'll say, yeah, I've got a 2004 4Runner and I need a new bumper, and it's going to, 2-3 days later, I come back by and they've crapped it out on the 3D printer. That's what I foresee the future being. Anyway. Okay, let's talk about the Mobile Lanyap just real quick. There were a couple of articles that were pretty good. Let's see here. Transformational Day. Mobile awarded funding for multiple affordable housing projects. And this is where I wrote where we might want to talk about what fascism is. The control of production by the government. And picking winners and losers, deciding who's going to get all this special incentives to build affordable houses with government subsidies. Willful, intentional, and malicious. Fired ADVA Commissioner sues Ivy for wrongful termination. And
I sent you that lawsuit.
Ken Davis is also is he going to run for governor or not?
He told me when I interviewed him that he would not run against Tommy Tuberville because Tommy Tuberville was so popular that he could not defeat Tommy Tuberville. He's been talked about as a possible U.S. Senate candidate. He's been talked about as an AG candidate. He's talked about getting in with Dean on the lieutenant governor's race. I think everybody's a possible candidate there. But he may not run at all. I should have gone to his press conference, but I was, 150 miles away. I was like, you need to give me more than like a 2-hour notice when you send me these emails.
Oh, come on, Brandon. You could have made that easy. So, learning the hard way. Simpson files bill to charge group shooters as capital murder. We talked about that. Bay mud in D.C. Britt advocates for responsible dredging. Did you know the only bay where they can dump the spoilage material in the bay where they're dredging it is Mobile Bay? No other bay in the United States.
Y'all do have pretty dirty water.
So here's a follow-up on a good one. Our sheriff's department, one of the deputies had a civil lawsuit, and one of the local attorneys here, Jason Hadley, was representing said deputy, and said deputy was in charge of property crimes, and he came and stole his own lawyer's Camaro and gave it to a man in Kansas. And so a motion for summary judgment filed last week in the controversial case of a muscle car seized from a Perdita man asked a Baldwin County judge to declare the vehicle rightfully belongs to a Kansas man. The documents filed on behalf of Deering, Kansas native John Perry on Thursday, June 12th states that he is the true owner of the white 1968 Chevy Camaro the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office deputy took from Thomas Hadley in September 2023, claiming Perry registered the vehicle in Kansas in 1999 before it was stolen in October of 2003. Of course, this car is a Franken car, and it has 17 different VIN numbers on it. Just the one on the windshield was reported stolen by this man in Kansas. And Mr. Hadley and his father have spent the last 10 years as a father-son project restoring this car, only to have it stolen by our own very sheriff's department. So anyway, he's now filed a summary judgment, and that's all, as we call fodder of the cannon. So there's an interesting story in here, and I will come across it here in a minute, but it's about Bradley Byrne, who is, do you remember Bradley Byrne? He ran for governor, and he is the he's the chamber leader down here in Mobile, and he's also a lobbyist. And it says Bradley Byrne has worn many political hats across coastal Alabama, but his current one as both the head of the Mobile Chamber as an attorney for a powerhouse lobbying firm is drawing a new level of scrutiny. So I will let you guys read all about this, but he's the head of Mobile Businesses Community while simultaneously being retained to lobby for clients like South Baldwin Chamber of Commerce, the Baldwin County Commission, Riviera Utilities, the city of Daphne and Foley, and the town of Dauphin Island, according to government lobbyist records. So
it beats delivering pizza as your side hustle.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get paid for 3 things while you're being paid for sitting there being the chamber director, why wouldn't you? Okay, so that's kind of it for the lanyap. So here's where we get to the fun part, boys. I love this part. So here's where we talk about the conspiracy theories.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Before we get into that, we probably need to mention that this week, the chairman of the Alabama Republican Party sent out a letter to members of the executive committee. I haven't had a chance to really look at it, but someone has sent me the letter, in which he told the members of the 450 members of the executive committee that he may have to seek a leave of absence from his well-paid job as chairman of the party to run against Dean and the guys for lieutenant governor. Very odd deal. My understanding is if you're a party officer, you cannot run for office while being a party officer. And yet our chairman apparently thinks you can, and we may have to have a rules change to accomplish that. Do you have anything to say on that, Dean?
Again, see, there's of course going to be an attempt that I've been told to keep me off the ballot because I ran last time. Now, John Wall was on Jeff Poore, and he explained that I can request an exception hearing about that, which I'm going to do. And of course, John Wall told me personally on the phone that rule was never meant to keep a true Republican, a conservative Republican off the ballot. It was to keep Democrats off the ballot. So if there's ever a case for somebody to get the exception, it would be me. So there's a path that I'm going to follow to deal with that. But one of my biggest arguments and why I went ahead and knowing 2 years later that they were going to try to keep me off the ballot by this technicality, the problem with them, and and I'm not saying this about John Wall, I'm just saying this generally, is that they don't consistently follow their own bylaws and their own rules unless, of course, it suits them. And so they've got a real serious problem if they try to apply, for instance, this rule to me and they didn't apply it to other people the same way. So I think we're going to be okay in that regard. But again, you hear in this situation that they're going to have to change a rule. It's what they said. They're going to have to change one of the bylaws for him to just take a leave of absence to run. So, again, we're moving the goalpost in the middle of the thing. So I don't personally have anything against John. John and I have gotten along well. And I think, we'll be kind to each other on the campaign trail. But I'm just sick and tired, though, of the duplicity within the Republican Party. And they talk about being the party of freedom, the party of the rule of law. And I've been asking, like, for instance, recently the College Republican, the Federation or College Federation of Republicans, whatever they call them, they did a straw poll and purposefully left me off of it. Even though I was the first declared official candidate for lieutenant governor and a former candidate for governor, they left me off, but put John Merrill on there, who's just a maybe. And they left me off that straw poll, and it's just another way of picking favorites. They actually pick their little favorites, and then they craft the rules and they craft the situation to help who they want. And to tell you the honest truth, I would say the majority of the Alabama Republican Party does not want an outsider. They don't want true conservatives, and they certainly don't want true Christians. They're fine with lukewarm Christians, but true Christians, you get too Christian like Judge Moore, and you got to be thrown off. If you're a little different or you don't believe exactly the way they think you should, and this is where I'm having a serious problem with the Republican Party. Article 6, paragraph 3 of the United States Constitution says there is no religious test to qualify basically or disqualify anyone from any elected office. So America is about being free to believe what you want to believe when it comes to your religion, your politics, and the spirit of the Constitution should be that we don't persecute people or oust people because they have a different belief than we do. I agree. I'm in 100% agreement with the Alabama GOP platform. There's not one point I disagree with. But then we see a lot of these guys and ladies and guys getting elected as Republicans, but they don't adhere to the platform. And so there's just a lot of contradictions, and they can say all day long. See, they love to point out the contradictions in the Democrat Party and how they treat their candidates and how they pick favorites and how they mess with the rules and move the goalpost and all that, like they did with Bernie. But they do the same thing. The Republicans do the same exact thing. So it's going to look real bad for them. I think if they make this rule change so he can just take a leave of absence, I think John should do the right thing, resign and run if he's going to, or stay as chairman and not run. I mean, just pick one way or the other. I mean, that's the rule.
Okay.
So,
does he really think he can win, Brandon, in this field? I don't think he can win. I think he would be wildly unpopular.
I think it's such a crowded field. I mean, even if they take Dean off the ballot, you still have Wes Allen. You still have Rick Pate. You still have Nicole Jones Wadsworth. I know, and the establishment just unloaded on Nicole Jones Wadsworth to try to take her out, but she's still in there.
That's the dirtiest thing I ever heard of.
I mean, John Merrill has been rumored to be looking at this. I can name, there's that major, who's the sheriff, a deputy out of Coleman, Mr. Bishop, he's running. There's a Brad Childress, whom I know very little about, he's running. There's more people rumored in that. I don't see necessarily that John Wall, I mean, he's got some good publicity by being the most known, library board chairman we've ever had. I just don't see that if that field is as big as it is now and is rumored to be getting, how he makes. I mean, Caroline Dobson has been thrown about as a lieutenant governor candidate. I don't see how he's in the runoff in that, where it narrows down to two candidates, much less the nominee. I may be underestimating John here, but that's an awfully difficult mountain. I mean, Dean knows everybody's in this. That's a difficult mountain to climb for anybody.
Oh yeah.
Okay, difficult. So let's get to the hoax and conspiracy stuff. So does everyone remember Colin Powell telling us that Iraq was enriching yellowcake uranium and it was our duty to go in and disarm this bad guy?
Right.
Okay. So same thing. Israel says Iran was racing towards a nuclear weapon like they had been for the last 30 years. Yeah, right. Okay, so I'm going to agree with you on some things that you might.
Israel attacked them, and they have to justify why they attacked them. So, Israel says the Mossad told him they were days away, and so he had to just do it.
Okay, so I have a great conspiracy theory that this plan being carried out right now is Epstein's plan. That's why a bunch. I know, but it was his plan. This is the plan that he put in place all along. It's the reason he compromised everybody in tech and finance And you see what I'm saying? You don't think so?
I think Epstein was just an intel plant for either us or Israel or Britain or somebody that just wanted dirt.
I think you said it the second time, and I think he was definitely an operative for the. So
he made $1 billion. That's really hard to explain.
So I got another good one for you. We've been talking about this, Dean. We talked about it during the first trial because I thought it was fascinating that this woman had been accused of killing her boyfriend when he was obviously beat to death by his fellow Boston police officers, maimed by a dog, and left on the front yard to freeze to death. And they charged Karen Reed twice with the crime. So that's the other conspiracy theory, is that she actually killed John O'Keefe. It's a bunch of bullcrap.
You don't want to think that a girlfriend would run over her loving boyfriend, and you don't want to believe that brother officers would beat a fellow officer near to death and let him go outside and die in the snow
after sicking the dog on him.
But one of those two things happened.
Yes, I sure did, and there was reasonable doubt all over the place, especially after the lead investigator for their version of Aaliyah turned out to be totally incompetent, had no idea what he was doing, called her a crazy MF and B word and all this kind of stuff in official correspondence, right? Not like, just emails to Brandon, and he goes, yeah, she's a crazy F. Yeah. Okay, so what's another good conspiracy theory? That the reason Hoss Mack left was over the 21 kilos of cocaine missing from the OCDF task force. So remember when all the cocaine was washing up on the beach during the plague and one of our deputies drowned? So at the same time, 21 kilos of coke were picked up in Gulf Shores. They were receipted out to the task force. The task force receipted it out. It was like, who's on first of who's actually got this 21 kilos. Well, they just went missing. And so anyway, we said there was some kind of sex scandal or whatever, but nobody really got in any trouble. There were some lateral moves, and Hoss Mack quietly leaves the position he's wanted his whole life to go be Bobby Timmons.
Yeah, Hoss is old, and Bobby Timmons, he sadly had to retire and then since died. They needed somebody in that role. I mean, given Hoss's advanced age, I don't think it's unusual at all for him to retire. Now, He picked a good time given, the sex scandal and some of the stuff with the
21 kilos being missing. That whole thing. So,
I know about all that.
So in 2014, the North Baldwin Utilities here in Baldwin County bought 2 bungalows at Steelwood Country Club, and they said they were being used for economic development purposes. So anyway, we started a little podcast, and of course it's behind a gate, and it's, a place to go entertain young ladies that you're not married to by certain people
that is a presumption on your part.
Well, I mean, I know they had a bunco party. I got invited.
They had a bungalow, and they did some bunco.
They did some bunco and whatever. But anyway, they had to get rid of it, and they said they were using it for economic development purposes. And Lee Lawson came out, our economic development director, and defended the mayor and all these people up there. So I believe that Lee Lawson's $317,000 salary includes $100,000 to help pay for the new hunting camp that we all went in together on, so we can have somewhere to have sex with women that we're not married to.
That's a presumption on your part again, there, Harry.
Well, it's just not I'm talking about conspiracy theories that people have emailed me. Okay. So, and it's not a conspiracy theory that he's making $317,000 a year, because a headhunter called me and wanted to know if I wanted to come be the economic development guy in Tampa, and he said, "But we can't afford that Lee Lawson money down here in Tampa. We can't afford what Baldwin County's paying." Okay, what's another one? The United States Sports Academy here in Fairhope is CIA.
Yeah, now we're really getting out on the limb there now.
Okay. How many people that work at the CIA started out in Jesuit school at Spring Hill College in Mobile?
They have a really good college at Spring Hill, and of course, the CIA is going to send some recruiters.
Of course they are, because
They
it's
want
where
the
all the
best in
smart.
Nevada.
It's where all the smart people are. Not that the Jesuit order can get us behind any wire that we need to get under. Right, that's the whole purpose of it. Baldwin County Sewer Service. Baldwin County Sewer Service paid to set up Nodine because he was a big environmentalist over in Mobile, and they didn't want him screwing up their game over here.
Yeah, no, I mean, whether he killed poor, Mrs. Downs, or she, executed herself, I don't believe anybody that was planned.
Okay. So the other one I heard, the Catalyst group, that came down here and married money, the conservative money, and they went to all our judges and everybody and said, hey, we think you're a great conservative. We got all this money. We just want to give you. And so they took over politics in Baldwin County. Anyway, there's some concern that they are the last remnants of the Nazis in America and Operation Paperclip, and that's a little bit of a stretch.
Somebody emailed that to us.
Indeed, they did. So let me find another one. The chief of police, Al Talbert, in Bay Minette, is in the real estate business and is putting people in jail to steal their land. You like that one? So listen, when I was a city or county manager, the International City County Management Association that I was a member of, which is an ethics-based organization, said that while you're working as the city manager or the county manager somewhere, you can write books to make money on the side, or you can teach. You can't you can't be a lobbyist for, the school system, and you can't do this and you can't do that, right? There's a reason for that, and it draws the ire of people when you're the police chief and you're subdividing 400 acres outside of town.
We've got over an hour and a half here.
Let's see here. I got another good one. So do you know about the last slave ship that was found down here in Mobile?
The Clotilda.
The Clotilda.
Yes.
So that's not the Clotilda. They brought the Clotilda up this side of the Delta because what they were doing had been illegal for 50 years. And of course, Ben Range, the fake archaeologist who found it, whose father was, of course, Howell Raines, former CIA operative under Operation Mockingbird and former editor of the New York Times. Yeah, and, of course, as soon as they found said fake ship, Anderson Cooper, who just, the guy he just never found that right girl, and he just happened to be the junior guy who was in Baghdad when that whole shitstorm kicked off in 1989, right? He and Bernard Shaw just happened to have the first satellite phones in the world and happened to be in the Hilton when that whole thing kicked off. Anyway, he comes down here and does a special to cement the deal that this is the Clotilda. And so now we're building a big museum and all this kind of stuff to further the self-hatred of the people of South Alabama, which there could be no other reason for putting forth something that's absolutely fake. Now, did it happen?
It's not a fake ship. It is a real shipwreck.
It was a real shipwreck. This is not the Clotilda.
It's a real shipwreck that was found, and it does date from the same era as
I have the captain's log. They came up the Blakely River. I've had it since 1999. Anyway, I don't know if the moon landings are fake. I don't know. I do believe I do have a problem with our comprehension of time. I would agree with the religious zealots on that point, because I seriously doubt that. And I have some different forms of technology here. This is a knife made out of a file, right? This would have been 1900s technology, and then we've got the SE4. Probably 1940s technology. And then we've got a Bussy combat knife that is circa 1995, as good of a piece of steel as you can buy on the open market, right? So I seriously doubt this is the first time that there have been monkeys walking around for 200,000 years that can have conversations like this. And this is the first time that we started working with metal. And we went from a horse and buggy during my grandfather's lifetime, who was born in 1890. He died in 1980. I mean, think of all the technological advances that happened during that period of time. I seriously doubt this is the first time we got together and came up with blue jeans and asphalt, is all I'm saying. I'm open to the possibility that there have been previous civilizations that have ended in calamity, and I'm not, like an Atlantean or any of those kind of things, but it's a possibility.
Well, the Bible does actually teach that.
So, Brandon, do you know anything about our new? So, I said, the conspiracy theory is this is a lizard person. Do we know anything about the lizard man, the new ADM director?
Okay. The guy, is it George Patelos?
Yes.
He was the deputy guy at the Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for most of the last decade.
So he came up with the snapper check thing and other usurious crap.
Yeah, we learned a lot at ADCNR. Prior to that, he was at ADM as their section chief for 15 years up in Decatur. So it's one of the guys that's, got probably about 28 years of Alabama government service under his belt. We can trust him running ADM. I don't know why these other 10 people. They had Bentley's former chief of staff, David Perry, as one of the candidates. I'm like,
okay, so who's this sumbitch from this in the witness protection program that moved down here from Ohio?
I don't know why we couldn't have just promoted from within as to go get a flunky from Ohio State. I mean, to me, the president at Troy or at Southern Miss or Mississippi State or somebody, I can see that. But, I mean, if you've never been a college president before, the University of Alabama is an awfully big. I mean, normally if you're like in the Navy, you would think you would be like the captain of a frigate, then the captain of a destroyer, and maybe, captain of a nuclear sub, and then they give you the aircraft carrier. For some reason, they just decided they loved this guy in Ohio State who was in science over there. I think our reporter, Louisa, said that this sounds more like somebody who UAB would hire. I think even that's a stretch. But he's now the president of the University of Alabama.
Well, howdy ho. So, Alabama State Trooper and 3 others convicted in international drug trafficking. So this is another one of those where Chief Benefield and those clowns at A-Post do a nutcracker off the high dive again. And, not a good look, man.
It does not look good for the state troopers, but I mean,
he's hauling drugs in his state trooper car.
In the Bible, it corrupts to the present. And I kind of you can make more money in international drug trafficking than we pay our troopers.
Yeah, which is what A-Post is supposed to be doing. Okay. So my contention is Jimmy Buffett.
Done a long time now.
So Jimmy Buffett is a covert operative for the CIA, and he is still alive. He thought he could.
He's dead.
No,
yeah.
He thought he could make it without his money. But lo and behold, his $275 million estate is in controversy because he did what you're supposed to do. He set up a trust. And one of the people in the trust is his wife. She's the beneficiary. And the other person is my good friend, Brandon Mosley, who's fastidious with money, as everyone knows. And so the wife wants to buy a new airplane, and the fastidious friend Brandon goes, yeah, I don't think we're buying an airplane this week, honey. And she's like, bullshit. Jimmy said I could have whatever I wanted. So anyway, she's in a big controversy with the other administrator. But, I'm pretty sure Jimmy Buffett is still alive. And so I thought finally, and I hate Dean's, I had to take a break for this, but I thought we would give the scientific method and rationality its due. And, while we're religious people here in Alabama, we are grounded in fact and reality. And anyway, I thought that was a lot of fun. I hate that we didn't. I didn't
went
have
like
more
20 minutes over
conspiracies.
there, but-
Yeah. Well, an hour and a half. That's not bad. So, Dean, tell us what's your when's your next stop down here? You coming to the, fried chicken dinner in Point Clear or anything?
You know what? I have got to look at my schedule. I cannot tell you. I know I'll be down there. I went down to Baldwin County and Mobile a lot last time, so we'll be down there in Republican meetings and different events.
So I had one more observation, and I only have one thing to base it factually on. So if I were trying to control the legislature and I had unlimited amounts of money and I were the Porch Creek Indians, do you know what kind of a fine and brilliant woman would be my lead lobbyist?
I don't like where this is going.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's how I know that over half the legislature are closeted gay men.
Well,
Let's not throw stones at Robbie. I mean, I like Robbie. I mean, I don't approve his lifestyle, but yeah, he has a job to do.
Right. But I'm just saying, if I was running the largest lobbying organization and I had millions of dollars, there'd be some hot chick that everybody go, oh, here comes Harry's lobbyist, right? Which is, of course, what they do. Okay, so that's the end of the podcast. Dean, did you ever imagine that you would be walking into something like this, the made-up holiday, where we talk about all the made-up conspiracy theories?
This one went off the rails.
This is a very unique interview I've ever had. Yeah.
Well, thank you. We will take that on the chin. I will take that on the chin. Of course, Brandon is just along for the ride. But I thought we'd have a good time with it. Listen, man, if you want to believe in the Force from Star Wars, you can believe whatever you believe, so long as you believe in a secular government. You're a candidate for Republican office, and we want to give you your due and give you an opportunity to speak.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess what got me angry last time the most is I just saw all Alabamians' freedoms were being taken from them and violated. And that ought to make us angry. And I said in one of my first commercials last time, I said, look, even though I'm a pastor, I'm not trying to force Christianity on people if I'm lieutenant governor or governor. I just want to protect their freedom. And the moment I would not protect their freedom but try to protect mine, I'm going to end up losing mine too. So I don't want anybody to lose their freedom, and I want to guard that. And I don't want to ever see our Constitution, and I say our God-given constitutional rights, violated by any official. And I don't care if they're Republican, Democrat, or Libertarian, or in between. I don't care what they are. Don't come tell me I've got to shut down my church because there's a virus running around. I'm sorry, but we don't lose our rights in America when there's a crisis. And we're about to be in a crisis because I believe these wars are going to escalate. And especially China is probably going to move on Taiwan sometime between now and 2027 is what they're saying. So, our life's going to change here, and we're going to need leaders that are strong and not going to bend the knee to any kind of tyranny. I don't care if it's foreign or domestic. And we got to be ready. And I don't think we're ready as a state for what's about to come in the next few years. I just think we're just like with COVID, we're going to be caught with our pants down and we're not going to be ready. And there's going to be a lot of hurting Alabamians if we don't get ready for that. And that's some of the things I want to do too, when it comes to energy security here, food security, some things that talk about, I got a thing I call the Joseph Project that I want to do, but I guess I'll sum it up this way. I'll put it this way. I think any true politician, if they love their people, then they do what is right to protect them. And even if it costs them the next election. And I think the whole purpose of government is to protect the good people and from the bad people. And that's it. It's real simple. And when we see immoral and corrupt people not doing that, whether they're the attorney general or the governor. Somebody needs to be up there to hold them accountable for that and call them out. And I will do that.
Okay, so I have one bonus question for Brandon. You ready?
Okay.
What's the atomic weight of cobalt?
I do not have that memorized.
58.93. Okay, you're right there in the Ted Cruz bucket, Brandon. I'm so very disappointed. All right.
I did not realize we were doing a interview on the periodic table today.
Well, you need to be ready for anything when you come on with Tucker Carlson or Harry, right? You never know what's coming your way. All right, guys. Well, that was great. I really had a good time, and I guess I'm gonna go march. What time's the march? I know in Mobile it's from like 2 to 7 today. I don't know if I'll make it over there. It's almost 5 now. Okay. Well, hey, Dean, thanks so much for your time. Brandon, have a good one.
Thank you for having me, guys. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right.
Glad to have you, Dean.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I hope I may say comrades and friends, before your minds, I exempt myself from the Speaker's kind offer of protection that was so generously proffered at the opening of this evening. Anyone who wants to say anything abusive about or to me is quite free to do so, and welcome, in fact, at their own risk. It's not just the right of the person who speaks to be heard. It is the right of everyone in the audience to listen and to hear. And every time you silence somebody, you make yourself a prisoner of your own action because you deny yourself the right to hear something. In other words, your own right to hear and be exposed is as much involved in all these cases as is the right of the other to voice his or her view. Indeed, as John Stuart Mill said, if all in society were agreed on the truth and beauty and value of one proposition, all except one person, it would be most important. In fact, it would become even more important that that one heretic be heard, because we would still benefit from his perhaps outrageous or appalling view. In more modern times, this has been put, I think, best by a personal heroine of mine, Rosa Luxemburg, who said that the freedom of speech is meaningless unless it means the freedom of the person who thinks differently. My great friend John O'Sullivan, former editor of the National Review, and I think probably my most conservative and reactionary Catholic friend, once said, it's a tiny thought experiment, he says, if you hear the Pope saying he believes in God, you think, well, the Pope's doing his job again today. If you hear the Pope saying he's really begun to doubt the existence of God, you begin to think he might be onto something. Well, if everybody in North America is forced to attend at school training in sensitivity on Holocaust awareness and is taught to study the final solution, about which nothing was actually done by this country or North America or the United Kingdom while it was going on, but let's say as if in compensation for that, everyone's made to swallow an official and unalterable story of it now, and it's taught as the great moral exemplar, the moral equivalent of the morally lacking elements of the Second World War, the way of stilling our uneasy conscience about that combat. If that's the case with everybody, as it more or less is, and one person gets up and says, you know what, this Holocaust, I'm not sure it even happened. In fact, I'm pretty certain it didn't. Indeed, I begin to wonder if the only thing is that the Jews brought a little bit of violence on themselves. That person doesn't just have a right to speak. That person's right to speak must be given extra protection, because what he has to say must have taken him some effort to come up with, might contain a grain of historical truth, might in any case give people to think about why do they know what they already think they know. How do I know that I know this, except that I've always been taught this and never heard anything else? It's always worth establishing first principles. It's always worth saying, what would you do if you met a Flat Earth Society member? Come to think of it, how can I prove the Earth is round? Am I sure about the theory of evolution? I know it's supposed to be true. Here's someone who says there's no such thing, it's all intelligent design. How sure am I of my own views? Don't take refuge in the false security of consensus and the feeling that whatever you think, you're bound to be okay because you're in the safely moral majority. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to have it defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this can pick a number, get online, and kiss my ass.